guys. How are you?
What do you got to say to the peeps?
Nothing. We're all in quarantine. Everybody's losing their minds a little bit.
It's crazy out there, Jimmy.
Why do you say that?
Well, the sky is falling or something, they're telling us. We're not supposed to...
I would take that with a grain of salt. I think that, we got some of the smartest minds in the world working on solving and curing this pandemic. They knew this was coming for years now. There's a speech by Bill Gates 4 years ago talking about this is coming. The fact that they were, that left us a little vulnerable and woefully unprepared. The fact that, we had we have to get all our supplies from China. We have to rely on another country, essentially, who created the pandemic for our masks, for our insulin, for our medications. It's all made in China. So I think that, they're going to rethink a few things in the future when this is over, when people can go back out into the world.
Exactly.
And whether it will ever get back to normal is another question.
Right. Do you think this will make the politically correct Nazis shut up for a while?
I think it's going to make everybody shut up. This is really what you're dealing with. We're talking about, the survival of the species.
Yeah.
But God forbid this pandemic was worse. People just dropping and dying in the middle of the street.
Yep.
All that shit falls to the wayside. You realize how much bullshit it all is.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything. It's just a lot of noise. And I got to tell you, I think we had this coming.
Exactly.
We're human beings. We do need a sense of purpose. We do need to be able to figure things out and do things. Everybody's wearing helmets. They got the laundry detergent that's 12 times tougher than baked on messes. You have an automatic pet feeder. You have a robot that vacuums your living room. Where is, you got a video doorbell to practically frisk people before they come into your house. Where's your sense of purpose? How busy are you? And I think this is a nice reset button for your humanity to figure it all out, because I got to be honest with you, I think we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You see all these men that become women and then compete in women's athletic events, which is stupid. I'm just wondering how come women don't become men and then compete in men's athletic events. It never goes back the other direction.
Never. Yeah. I remember back in the 60s when there was that book, Black Like Me, and a white person took pills to become black to experience that.
Is that right?
Let's see a white person do that and get into athletics.
Well, it's just, any of that stuff, it's bullshit. Obviously, here's the thing. We are a species on the planet that comes in many forms. Asian and African American and Caucasian. We are a species. If this pandemic proves one thing, it proves that we're all kind of living together in this giant human ecosphere called planet Earth. And what hurts the guy across the world hurts me. And what hurts me hurts him. And people got to get their heads out of their ass and figure that out. Anybody who's trying to politicize this or make this so-and-so's fault you're an asshole. You're a useless human being. You really are. We're fighting for the survival of the species, because this COVID-19, it could become like the seasonal flu. It
could.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about the people that are licking poles, shopping carts?
I hope they get it, and I hope they wind up on a respirator with 30% lung function, and I hope they die. That's what Charles Darwin said. It's go ahead, go lick a toilet, go do all that dumb stuff. You're a moron. That's the problem, really. If everybody would just stay inside and social distance for a good month, this thing would go away.
It would.
Because it needs people to travel. It can't travel by itself. So, I don't like the odds of my survival, when my survival depends on other people having common sense.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's the scare. That's it in the nutshell right there, folks. Like you always do. You get right to the nutshell of the whole problem.
That's right.
See, if we...
How come I can't see you on camera? You just got your picture up there.
I know. What happened is that the computer decided to give me a hard time, so I had to do this backwards, and I'm not used to that. So now you don't get to see both of us but you will when this gets posted to Facebook.
Oh, okay.
We're side by side, but as usual, my head is always bigger than everybody else's.
Nice.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I know. My head looks like a giant piece of urban folk art as well.
So, you've been personally affected by this coronavirus with people you know?
Yeah, my whole occupation, everybody has. Anybody that does live performance has been affected. That comes down to singer-songwriters, people in bands, ventriloquists, comedians, spoken word people. Anybody that does anything performing arts-wise has been affected.
Yes.
I mean, plays have been canceled. Live performance has been canceled. And it's really weird because I think during times like this, people really need to laugh,
Exactly.
And so,
this is ridiculous because I see this as essential.
well, the problem is, but you don't want to be. The problem with the COVID-19 is, and I like my COVID like I like my women, 19 and easy to spread. No, I'm kidding. What the problem is you don't know you're infected, and so then you're carrying and affecting other people. That's the scariest thing about this. Like if people knew they were sick, they would just stay at home. That's no big deal. But people don't know they're sick until it's almost too late.
Exactly.
And you wind up on a respirator. I'm just going to leave frame for 1 second and go get my coffee. Be right back.
Okay, Jimmy.
I can still hear you.
All right. We won't talk about you then.
Sorry.
See the nice living room? He has a nice living room.
Yeah, because I live like a human being. I spend my life in hotel rooms, or I used to anyway. Spend my life in hotel rooms. I want to come back to a nice, well-decorated, relaxing pad,
Yeah. Do you are you bi-coastal?
I could be. I travel enough, but I have family back there, so lots of times I want to stay with my family on the East Coast. I have a lot of friends all over the country, actually, because, as a traveling comedian, you get to build relationships, and I have built relationships over the last 20 years with people who say, hey, come to town, stay with me.
How cool is that? Are you
Yeah, it's very cool.
Are you a Phillies fan?
I am. Everything related to Philadelphia, I'm a fan of. It's my umbilical cord back to the city. I consider myself a Philadelphian at heart, And I like the attitude in Philadelphia. I like being, I do like the Philly attitude.
Well, we had a person from Oregon that became very famous in Philly. Maybe you know his name, Chip Kelly.
Oh, yeah, for destroying the Eagles franchise. I mean, that shit may work in college football, but he certainly destroyed. I mean, he was a fraud. I mean, he got a little bit of success with the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
But, people don't. Chip Kelly he looks like an idiot.
No, he got in over his head, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Well, he's back teaching college ball now where it belongs.
Yeah. Now he's teaching USC or UCLA. I don't know.
Yeah, he'll destroy those franchises as well.
Man alive. Yeah, I lived in Philly for a few months, and I was roommates with Paul Lyons, and I lived right across from the art museum.
Yeah, that Rittenhouse Square. It's real nice down there.
Yeah.
Philly's a great town, man. I do love it. It's a great food town. You go to the Italian market and grab some stuff. It's like, it wasn't what it once used to be, but it's certainly still there. But, Philly is definitely a great food town, great entertainment town. Lots of things to do. They love their sports teams. They're, I like the directness. I grew up with that directness of people coming right at you.
Yeah.
And, I like it. I prefer it, to tell you the truth. I prefer it as opposed to having people like I live in Los Angeles now, and everybody out here is very passive aggressive, a little douchey. They pretend like they're your friend, and they're feeling your back for the soft spot to stick the knife because they can't be it. I like authenticity in human beings. I really do. And I don't give a fuck if you're a complete fuck up as long as you're authentic about it. I just love authenticity. I hate phony. I hate fake. I can't stomach it.
Yeah, I hate it too. I was doing comedy and I could never quite get into a groove. And then Paul Lyons told me, and he's from Philly, so he was straight up. He said, have you ever thought about looking up the word authentic with your comedy? And so I did, and then I cried for 2 weeks because I realized I wasn't authentic at all. I was just like trying to say anything to be funny, but not authentic.
Well, the thing is, because you realize that, it is really all about, it's about the audience and making the audience laugh, but being able to do that in a way that is completely original is if you're authentic to yourself. You're authentic to who you are. I'd rather fail doing something I'd love to do or doing something my way than to be successful being like having to do like a character for the rest of my life,
Exactly. So when you were in Portland at Harvey's, not to plug them, but that's where I met you at Hard Rock in Portland. And then the next year I was at Harvey's and the year after. And when you're at Harvey's, you swing for the fences. You just go for the jugular. There's no stopping Jimmy Shubert. You just push that envelope, and if they resist, you don't give a flying. You are so... That's what makes you so great, besides your material is stellar.
Well, you know why, though? That's because I have a passion for it. I have a passion for making people laugh. I love to make people laugh. It is my favorite thing. It is my favorite sound on the planet. There's a room full of people laughing. I love the feeling I get. It feels, even though you're making them laugh and have a good time, that's the joy. That's the thing that feeds my soul. And to be coming up with ideas and creative bits and stringing together phrases that are able to accomplish that task on my own and do it at a high level in an original way, well, that's just years and years of doing it. But I also have a passion for it. And that's why I attack the stage. And that's why I wouldn't say attack audiences, but that's why I have that. I'm passionate about it,
Absolutely.
And I think passionate. People think I'm angry, but I'm not. I'm passionate.
Yes.
I think there's definitely a difference. It's like some people go, well, are you a clean act or a dirty act? Well, it's like, that's kind of relative, isn't it? Well, you can use the word shit and F. You can say shit and fuck and still not be considered dirty. Those are just words. But if you're sitting there talking about fist fucking Mother Teresa on a meat slicer in the back of the 7-Eleven, then that's a filthy visual image. Yeah, so I don't do any of that stuff. I try to work to the top of my intelligence. I try to, I think the originality is in the way you present the material, because there really are so many comedians out there now talking about a lot of the similar things. How do you talk about it? How do you approach it? So,
yeah. What about your acting? Oh my God, you've been on King of Queens. You've been with Shoot Fire, that supermodel actress from
Charlize Theron,
yeah,
Angelina Jolie. I've done some. I've had some. It's good. That's really. I've always wanted to do that. I love that I'm able to do my stand up and make a living that way. And when I'm lucky enough that they let me be able to go in and act, because I studied acting. I went to CAPA. I went to Creative Performing Arts High School. Had 3 drama classes every day. I ultimately knew I wanted to be a stand-up comic. I wanted to be like Charlie Chaplin when I was 9. So
Wow.
For me, my only advantage in life is that I knew what I wanted to do at a very early age. And then I was smart enough to actually pursue goals that put tools in my toolbox that allowed me to go have this amazing career. So I worked on my stand-up. I also performed magic. I was a professional magician when I was like 14, 15, 16, 17 because I could make a living doing that. And then when I hit 18, I got up the wand and went right to the comedy club. But the reason I was doing that was because I wanted to get good at performing. Magic is a way to get good at performing because I wasn't allowed in nightclubs. Back then, I was like, I was a kid. I mean, sure, nowadays they would let kids go into a comedy club and you could do stuff, some matinee stuff, but back then it didn't exist. So I was doing magic and practicing magic, but I also was actively had a joke file when I was like 14, 15. I mean, I really did. Wow. My grandmother would set up the Reader's Digest, and I'd go through and find, Life in the United States, Humor in Uniform. They had these jokes there, and I would cut them out, circle and paste them on a board, and I was studying joke construction back then.
Wow.
And I was elected to get one magic trick every week, and so I was got one magic trick, one Robert Orban joke book, and I used to study like the structure of jokes. I know, it's crazy. And then when I got the job as a doorman at the Comedy Store, I got to sit in the back and I got to like watch it live and deconstruct it and watch the best guys in the world do it, like Robin Williams, and Sam Kinison, and Andrew Dice Clay, and Arsenio Hall, and just Gary Shandling, and I just got to work the door and watch these guys. Wow. And that was like my college. And so, obviously I saw the stuff that I liked and the stuff that fit my personality, but I didn't actually become who I authentically was till after I'd been doing this for like 9 years. I finally found my voice, because I think the first 4 years, you're doing your impression of a comedian, as opposed to being who you authentically are, yeah. And you're susceptible to influences, and so you like pick up other people's cadence, and it takes you 4 years doing stand-up regularly on a regular basis, almost every night, to allow yourself to finally be who you are, and then it takes you another couple of years to write material to fit that who you are. The problem was I started doing it so young, so my point of view had changed so much from the time I was started doing this when I was like 17, 18, 19, and then through 26, and then through 30. I mean, my point of view changed a lot. It's because I grew up. I got a little more mature, and I started doing the things I started joking about changed. So,
I'd like to make an observation about your comedy. Observational comedy is not seen as that funny, i.e. Seinfeld. But you take observational comedy and you throw in really outs and huge sarcastic rants that are relatable and real. I'm trying to break down what the hell you do, because I'm only in 6 years and I'm looking at somebody that has so many elements in his toolkit that you're using.
Well, I would say that my stand-up comedy dances fearlessly on the high wire of intensity and imagination. I work in a kind of a comedic short story form that you call rants. Yes, I am a ranter and a raver, but I'm also a storyteller.
Okay.
And so within the construct of the act, storytellers rule the planet. Storytellers rule the planet because they instill hope with imagination. They do it over and over and over again. And so you're really, the thing you're trying to do is express your sense of humor. Because if I think it's funny, I think the people in the audience will think it's funny. And certainly if it didn't make me laugh, it's not going in my act. And so I try to strike those chords in the audience that will, stand-up comedy is really like an everyman's art form. The audience has to have accessibility to you. You can't talk down to them. You can't be condescending. You have to be one of them. And basically, I'm giving them information. And really, realistically, I'm like 3 seconds ahead of them. I mean, the reason you get there's a rhythm to stand-up comedy. It's like music. I would say it's like jazz music, really. there's a rhythm to your stand-up, or at least for me there's a rhythm to it. And it's funny because they say, stand-up comedy and jazz music are uniquely American art forms in the sense that, they were invented here, really. Mort Saw, I would say, was the father of where a guy's standing there with a newspaper in his arm talking about the things that happened that day.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about set bits and practice bits and gags. I mean, obviously, you could argue that, it may be the second oldest profession. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There was the bring me the girls and then bring me the court jester. People wanted to laugh, and people have always wanted to laugh. So you could argue that, but the way it was done, when Mort Saul was standing up talking to an audience about things that happened that day, current events, that is uniquely American, and that's why. And obviously you got guys like Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and these guys all these guys that came from. If you think about it, really, it's fascinating because the guys that were comedians that started in vaudeville, then they also pioneered radio because comedy was always king. Those guys pioneered radio, and then those radio guys then went into television because these were developing mediums as they went. And these guys had honed their act for years in front of live audiences. So Sid Caesar and these guys were really pioneering the radio and television medium. So it's fascinating. There's a great book about Ernie Kovacs. This guy was doing 14 hours of live television back in the late 50s.
Wow.
Before, but 14 hours of live television, it's amazing. Ernie Kovacs was, so it's, I just find the history of it fascinating. I love to read about it. I love to read about who the pioneers were and stuff. And so, I just love everything about it. And I feel the same way about magic. I'm very lucky that I've been able to, I got past the Magic Castle, so I do a lot of that as a kind of I wouldn't say I'm a pro, but I'm definitely a top-seeded amateur. You know what I mean?
Well, if you got into that comedy club with your magic, that means you're pro, right?
Well, no, it's just a private. It's the Magic Castle, it's the Academy of Magical Arts. So it's a big deal to become a member there, and I'm a magician member. I'm not just a regular member, so that's kind of cool. But I love anything performing. I like acting, I like doing magic, and I like doing stand-up. And unfortunately, because of this pandemic, now I've never felt like a more unessential human being in my life because there's nothing really to do.
Exactly. Have women ever asked you to make their fine lines and wrinkles disappear? No, because I just do fucking card tricks. I do good card tricks, but I do card tricks. That's cool. I've seen you do some. You're really good at it. You guys should get out and see him do comedy and magic and find out his movies and go watch them and help support. Have you been financially hit by this whole thingamajig?
Yeah.
Are you taking donations through Venmo and Cash App?
No, I'm not. People can go buy my special if they want to look at it. They can go to Vimeo and they can rent my special for $3.99, or they can buy my special for $9.99, and it will live on the Vimeo app. They can, they can buy my CDs on iTunes. They can listen to me on Spotify and Pandora if they want to help out. So,
I'll post that at the end, how they can help.
Well, I'm lucky because I've been doing acting for a while, so I get residual checks in the mail. It's called mailbox money. I get residuals from my CDs and all my content that gets played on Sirius XM and Spotify and Pandora. So as long as people continue to play my stuff, I'll continue to get paid. And I filed for unemployment and a small business loan and some other stuff to help me get through this, and hopefully we'll get all back to normal sooner rather than later. Because this is. I think people want to get out. People want to be social, man. We're social creatures. We need to interact. This is kind of ridiculous.
This is ridiculous. It's enough of it now. I get what we're doing. And I know this thing is spreading. So one city's on lockdown, then another. But
well, people need to stay home. People need to be careful. And in 3 weeks to a month, when you know you're not sick, and they got these tests developed, they can find out who's sick, and so we can stay away from those people. They can go self-quarantine. I mean, I don't know. Unfortunately, this is really like, I lost a kid I went to high school with, passed away, died. Ray Booker. I lost another friend of mine to cancer. I mean, could you imagine dying in the middle of a pandemic? Nobody can go to a funeral. Your loved ones can't visit you. I mean, that's the problem. When you die in a bed of COVID-19, you die by yourself, all alone, on a fucking respirator.
Yeah.
By yourself.
By yourself,
it's
alone.
Fucking sad.
Very.
And people can't, and you can't have funerals. You can't have mass. You can't bury people properly. It's fucking sad, man. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going through this. I mean, this is affecting everybody, and it's people would just. Here's what I say to people: I say, act like you have it, and fucking stay away from people. Assume that you have it. That's a great way to. Let's say you were sick, or pretend. Let's say, because you don't know that you have it.
Right.
So pretend you have it, and stay the fuck away from people. And then when you've done the 3 weeks quarantine, well, I'm not sick. I guess I don't have it. Well, then we'll know.
Yeah.
But I mean, until that fucking happens,
Well, I went to 7.
The longer people fucking continue to interact, this is going to continue to go on longer and longer and longer. So if people would just fucking bite the bullet and pay attention and not do that, then chances are we could get back to normal a little bit.
I've had so many people tell me that they don't worry about it, and those are the people I worry about. I mean, you should.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be worried about it when they're on a respirator fighting for fucking air. This is a brutal disease, and the problem is it affects people with fucking like type A blood differently than people with type O blood. Seem to be a little more resistant to it. They can still get it, but their bodies are a little more resistant to it. So people with bronchitis and upper respiratory are having a tougher time with it. I mean, it's not. I mean, even pre-existing conditions, like let's say someone had an operation for heart transplant, diabetes, all those things make you susceptible. And this thing breaks down the immune system. I was reading about it the other day in a way that it just, you don't stand a fighting chance of any pre-existing condition. Like let's say you have a pacemaker or any of that stuff. I mean, you're on the fucking high risk list. So
yes, you've been so great. Go ahead.
People need to take it serious. People need to take it seriously. That's all. They
do. You've been so gracious with your time today. Is there any parting words that you want to say?
Well, Jesus, I think the kind of thing is that, we really have kind of taken everything for granted, haven't we?
Yes.
A lot of people do. I mean, you live in this newfangled world with all this great technology, but the things you miss at the end of the day are the little things. The human contact, the conversations, the hugs, the laughing together, those human moments are the things that you miss the most. And I think this is a reset button because everything's getting reset. The air has never been cleaner in Los Angeles because there's not that much traffic. The running around, the racing around, and I'm so busy, I got to do all this. And at the end of the day, the thing I want to do most is go, hug my parents and make sure they're okay, and hug my brothers and make sure they're okay, make sure my nieces and nephews are okay, make sure my family and my friends are okay. I'm saying the rosary. I'm praying every night, saying the rosary. The last couple of days have been rough. I lost 4 friends. One to COVID-19, one to cancer, another one had an aneurysm, and so it's very, and you can't, it's very tough.
Yes.
So, and then, and so you just gotta, hopefully this thing will go, they'll get a hold of it. You got the smartest minds in the country working on it, so hopefully they'll get a handle on it soon.
Yeah.
But I think we need to be kinder to one another. I think we need to help your neighbors out, help your people out if you can. And, love rules the day. At the end of the day, love rules the planet. So, but love one another, be kind to one another, and hopefully we'll get through this sooner than later, and we can resume our lives, and maybe we'll have a new perspective and a new appreciation for people. Because I think we got mean. You know, we get mean at each other, and just yelling shit out on Twitter and Facebook and saying horrible things and arguing with strangers over politics on fucking Facebook. Life's too short, man. Go enjoy your fucking life and spread some fucking joy. Help some people out. Be kind. And this is really, because you're not gonna, you know. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just, you know, it's an interesting new world we're gonna live in.
Yeah.
I hope it's a better one.
Yes.
Anyway.
Thank you so much, Jimmy Shubert. And you guys get on all them platforms and buy his specials and watch them and make all your relatives buy their own. Don't share them because they have germs on them.
Yeah, well, that's a great thing. You know, you set up people to buy your stuff digitally. They can buy your CDs and everything. So, all right, everybody, great talking with you. Enjoy your day. Remember, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Thank
Peace.
you. Awesome. Bye, Jimmy. Great job.
Bye. Thanks.